There we go. Okay, let's turn. If you could get a few, yeah, let's hit this bank. If we could have a few people, I need 3 verses. One's a passage looked up. So Micah 5:2. Okay, Mike. Luke 2:4-7. Pete. Luke 1:26. Pam. Okay, and we'll get to those in just a little bit. Now we are going to be looking today at Bethlehem. Now, tell me anything you know that happened at Bethlehem. One thing, just one. Okay, Jesus born at Bethlehem. Somebody else with another one.
David from that.
That's David's city. That's a key point. Now, this is similar, but there's another thing happened at Bethlehem. Very similar to the last one. I'm sorry. Don't know that. Don't know that. This it's the same, but it's where Samuel was trying. He didn't lie to him. He said, tell Saul if he asked, I'm going to offer sacrifices, which he was, but he went to Bethlehem where God sent him, where he anointed David. Don't look on the outward appearance. So these are the references that I came up with that are at Bethlehem. Now, we have looked so far. I'm trying to zero in on this. Last week we were here at Jericho. Well, let's forget that mouse. Here we go. We were at Jericho. We've been up. Here's Nazareth, and we're going to go there next week, most likely. If you remember, we're going to go from Jericho to Bethlehem. And notice how close we are. Remember, we were at the Dead Sea. This is roughly from here to the Dead Sea is about 18 miles. This is really close. Everything's close. And keep in mind, too, what is this green area called? West Bank. Is that Israel? No. Palestinian controlled. So we here are in Palestinian area. Now, you remember when we looked at Jericho? It was Palestinian. But if you remember, not a big deal. Yeah, we went through checkpoints here and there, but as we looked at Jericho, it was wide open. But notice Bethlehem, what's it on the border of? It's right next to Israel. So we've got a little bit of an issue. This is where Israel said, people, we're sick of this. We're going to block you off. We're going to put a wall up. And that is exactly what happened. Bethlehem is a lot more restricted. And it's a it's a very poor area as well, but it is a rough area. Now back in, and these are the stats that I found, 1948. Before Israel becomes a state, Bethlehem had a population that was about 95% Christian. Now, obviously, Christian is Catholic, Greek Orthodox, anything in that whole mix, including true Christians, is in that number, but 95% Christian. 1993, President Clinton was signing the peace accords. And those took years to kind of get everything moving to where they said they wanted stuff. But in 2000, there was this uprising that happened. And about 85% of the Christians that were in Bethlehem fled. And they went over into what is now Israel. They would have come over here. They got away from the Palestinians and the uprising. And now this area is just downright poor. And what used to be a 95% Christian population when I was there is estimated at 18%. And they're estimating within like 10 years, it's going to be down to about 2%. The Christian population is shrinking. The Palestinian and Muslim, I think some of the times that's the same, but that population is growing. Now, it's poor and it's very tough for Christians, and that makes total sense. Because think of it this way, and this would happen around here too. If you have a job you need to have done, you want to hire somebody to come build a house for you. You're going to call, if you've got cousins and friends who are contractors, you're going to call your friends to come in. You're not going to call in the Christians that you hate to come in and do work for you. So for these 18, the small minority of Christians, it is extremely hard for them to get work. It's extremely hard to live. Christians in this area are just totally poor. It's a rough area. So a lot of the Christians, one of the ways they make money is at a place we're going to look at is they do carvings, and the artistry is just beautiful. But let's look. When we went in to Bethlehem, this was one of our first sites. I didn't do video of this, but notice this. Walls are meant for bombing. Okay, they want that wall bombed. The Palestinians do not like this because, I mean, you notice up here, the razor wire is up here. When I was in there, I mean, the guide said, this is kind of like being in prison. And he said, because you are in prison, you cannot get out of this wall. So you're trapped in this wall. You cannot go out and say, here's my card. I'm a Bethlehem resident. I'm going over to work in Jerusalem. You'll get shot. You don't leave that wall. And it's that serious. They let tourists come in. But we would get in a ton of trouble, and I couldn't figure out why they wouldn't do it, because they never looked in our bus. If a person from Bethlehem smuggled into the bus and went out, they could get out, but if they catch them, they can kill them. It is serious about that. That's where, if you remember, this is where the phrase came from when Trump said, walls work. This is exactly what he was talking about. This is the place. Now, down here, and I couldn't get it to focus in, there was actually a mural of George Floyd or something. I mean, somehow they got him up there. But this is just the wall that is there right now. And it is, you can just see the size. You're not going over that wall. And if you try to do it, these are on the corners where they're ready to shoot you. So this is a reality. And they did have a Trump mural. I told somebody there was a picture of Trump on this thing, and that's it. The Israelis love Trump. And I don't know if this was meant as a target or if Palestinians like him too. I have no idea, but this is on the inside of the wall. So outside of this wall is Israel. So it's right there. I didn't see, we didn't stop on the other side to know what was painted. Yes. Don't know. They wouldn't care. They wouldn't care. Because for them, it's Jewish.
How much is that? Well, this is on the Israeli side?
No, this is on the Palestinian inside the city. And so this is just, I mean, I just wanted to show you this, so you see that this is a reality for these people every day. So when we talk about, Al's mentioned numerous times, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, it's serious. And it's something we take for granted, very much for granted. So somebody else asked something. Yes.
How much is that?
Oh, gas.
Yeah.
If I remember right, it's like $10, $12 a gallon, something like that.
Then the Gaza Strip on the previous picture, what's that? Is that mostly Muslim? No.
Gaza, that's a neat thing. Gaza has, okay, don't quote me too hard, but I'm pretty sure it's 2.2 million people in Gaza, okay? In the city, 2.2 million. In Gaza, there's estimated 700 Christians. That's 0.3%. You take that number and compare it to North Korea. North Korea is, if I remember right, 1.7%. Gaza's a rough area. And especially when you start talking about Christians being Catholic, Greek Orthodox, everybody at 700 people out of 2 million, you might have a group our size that's genuine Christians in a town, in a city of 2.2 million. It's rough. So this gives you an idea of what it's like there. And I had this picture going over this guy, but that was a really good painting. Because that's kind of what's on the outside. So they really, you got some talented graffiti people, but there's just no place to work. There's no jobs, and it's poor enough. Just to give you an idea, a home will rent roughly in Bethlehem for about $400 or $500 a month. You go over to Jerusalem, it's more like 2,000-3,000 a month. Totally different. And does Israel care about the economy for these people? Not one iota. They just don't care. If you're going to shoot missiles at us and rockets at us, die. That's kind of where they're at. And you can understand it. So that's what it's like there. So because of this, oh, Pete, I thought about you. Stars and Bucks Cafe. I don't think Starbucks is going to go in there and try to debate their copyright infringement. So this is Stars and Bucks, no Starbucks. And this is, okay, this means nothing, but notice that the coffee shop, this was popular. See this thing here? They'll put a mango and an orange or a grapefruit or whatever. They put it in this thing and it crushes it down and juices it really, really strong and good. And they sell a little cup for about $6-7. And those are everywhere. And they're really, really good. I try to sip with somebody else's. I'm not paying that kind of money. But this is the other one. Square Bucks was the other, and they sold everything. So yeah, there it is. There's the same fruits that are in there squish. So, but those were neat. Okay. I had this picture, Fote took this for me, and I wanted this picture specifically because, and I said, I want this behind us. And he said, I know what I'm doing. And he was right, he did. So right there, this guy is the grandfather of this guy. This is the man who, when in the 40s, 50s, when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, he was the best not translator, antiquities dealer. They brought him to him to say, are these things the real deal? And he's the one who kept pushing them, go give me some more of these. I want some more. And he's the one they were bringing them all to. He's the one credited for furnishing us with Dead Sea Scrolls. So this is why I wanted this picture. So this is his grandson. But notice, if you will, what this is the shop. You see all of this pottery. Some of you would have had a heyday in here. They will bring these things in and they sell it for a pretty penny because it's legit. It's the authentic stuff. And let's go over here. Sorry, my face is in it. There's more of them. So all of this, these antiquities, they bring them in here, they clean them, they get them ready. There's a whole bunch of the lamps. You know, when you read about the 10 virgins who had their lamps and they trimmed them. Our guide had one, he had that was not just a replica, it was one of the ones they've uncovered. There's a lot of them there, but they had that with the little oil flask. And when they say, you know, you're give us some of your oil, I'm thinking, you know, a big jar of olive oil. It's a little flask they would carry with them. There wasn't much in it. So for them to share that was a big, it would have endangered them having any. But this is what they're selling here. And it's, you know, one of those little ones would won, you know, over $100. So if you got a deal, so those are good. They're really good to see. This is our group, and you'll notice this, we're going to come back to these. And Ray, you probably recognize some of these. But what I want us to think about right now, they got me with a mad look on my face, but this is what I want us to concentrate on. You see that vase, pot, whatever you would call it. That's it.
Waters of wine.
Huh? No. Oh, no. You see here, temple scroll?
Oh.
This is what was inside of this. That and the book of Daniel was in this one. This is from the Essenes, from the Qumran caves. The shepherds, I think I'm going there next. This is where we're going to take a little detour. Okay, this is just the baths, and what this is talking about here is the fact, these Essenes, it was an all-male community, and their job was to write out the scriptures, copy the scriptures, and they were exceptionally fastidious. They wanted to make sure it was right. Now, kids, let me ask you a question. You ready, guys? This is for you guys. Adults, no helping. If you were responsible for making sure that we had all of our Bibles, okay? It's your job to make sure these don't get taken from us, okay? You with me? If you hear that somebody's coming into town and they're gonna take your Bibles, what are you gonna do with the Bibles you have? Right? What are you gonna do? That's what I would do. Is that what you would do? I would too. I would hide them. What do you think the Essenes did when they heard the Romans were coming in and they're gonna destroy everything?
Hide the Bible.
They're gonna hide them. And they had a whole bunch of them that they had all copied up. That's their job, is to copy them. So they had them all and they store them. I don't know if that's this next picture. Nope, it's not. That they stored them in these pots. So they had, when they found these pots at the where the Dead Sea Scrolls are, when they found these, they found every book in the Old Testament except Esther. And they found a complete book in that one of Daniel. And they found a temple scroll in this. So when that fella, and I don't remember his name, I apologize. That guy there, when Israel could have said, you're going to just give it to us, because their antiquities department can do that. They can take anything of value. He said, what I want is that one. It was the biggest and it was in the best shape. It was the one he wanted, and they gave it to him to put in this glass case. Everything else went to the Israeli Museum. So now I'm going to apologize to you up front. Most of these recordings, they are nothing but wind. You can't hear anything. So let me, oh, come on. Okay, what you didn't hear me say. This is one of the ritual baths. People would come in one way, they come down these steps, they go into the ritual bath, they come out a different way. That's how they get ceremonially clean. And that was just one of the ones they have there with the Essenes. Come on. A what? I'm not sure what those baths are called. Anything different? Oh no, this is what it was like. Oh, then yes.
Like when the door. Dry.
Oh, it's dry. Everything's dead down there. It is so dry. And what they will do, and you'll see that in a minute as well. Okay. Here I'm pointing up, you can't hear it. All these people are pointing up at these other caves. There were caves all over these mountains, and they found more of these antiquities. Here where the Essenes were, this was one of their buildings where they lived, where they kept their stuff. And it's still in pretty good shape, the basis of it. Again, this is the ceremonial bath, and there's multiples of them. So I have multiple pictures. Another of this, where their supplies were, there was one of the cisterns where they had, where the water would be kept for them. Here's how they got it. Same thing that we'll see later on at Masada. They made a huge dam at Masada, so that when the flash floods come, very infrequent, they would come down, hit their dam, and go into these aqueducts. And when the Jews took over Masada, they had, I don't know how to say this, I don't know what it means, but 40,000 cubic meters of water. They were set for years. So this is the aqueduct system that would bring them water. They would have it for the baths, they would have it for drinking. But keep in mind, and you'll see a video in a minute, how close this is to the Dead Sea. So that water is not fit for anything. A meter, a yard, so like cubic yards, a whole 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot of 40,000 of those. They had huge, and you'll see that at Masada. But it was amazing how much water was actually in, they had access to. And the Essenes did the same thing. So when you came as an Essene, you took like a vow of poverty. And so you would bring your money, and they found in some of these storage compartments in this area, jars of silver where people were coming in. Here's all I've got. They'd give it up and they would live here. And they had that silver. So they used to pay their bills and to get the supplies they needed. So that was a good find.
Okay, this cave that we have here is where somehow that sheep was lost. The shepherd found these Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea is right back this way.
Sorry for the speeding.
This is where the sheep was lost, right here. And then up this way is where other caves where they found more. And it didn't stop.
They found a lot of them up in there, a lot more. People went in and raided it. So the government didn't get all of it because people were going up and searching all in this. My first thought was, how did a sheep get in to that cave? And here's the issue. I'm thinking like an American. I see sheep, and what I see is a fat white thing that if it falls over, it can't get up. And it's just, I see an American thing. You've been seeing a lot of the animals that live in that territory. They go up rocks. They can handle this stuff. And you see like the, not a sheep, it's not the ibex. They climb these things and they'll go straight up. It's a different, it's a different animal, literally. So that's the cave here. And I have another one of it, that this is where they found those pots with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And that was probably the most significant scriptural find we've had probably in this century and the last. There's just an excellent find. This is one of the cisterns, and this shows you with that limestone they have there, they would, and I don't remember how they did, they would take the powder and they can make it into a plaster, and you'll see some of that at Masada, where it is in perfect shape, even though it's on top of that mountain that's so windy. Here you still see some of that original plaster that would be their wells, their cisterns, and they had a lot of the water kept that way. There's the cistern, the storage area they've discovered, just the topography that's there and how rugged that area is. And this is, by the way, if you remember in Gedi, where David would take the sheep, right down the road. This is not that far. So Qumran is very close to it. So there's the cave. And I heard a couple of different how they found it, but they were looking for it. They threw a rock in, trying to scare it out, and heard a crash. And then they knew, okay, something's in here. And if you hear a crash in a place like this, you go and investigate. And that's where they started finding stuff. Yes. Yes. So they had hidden things all up in that mountain, all over the place. And again, another one of the baths in the areas that they would have had for rooms, storage rooms and things like that. So this was the Essene community. Now, we're going to go back now to Bethlehem, to the shop. So these are some of the carvings, and I just took pictures because I wouldn't buy them, but these are one piece of wood. One piece of wood carved out. I couldn't even carve just a hole and have it look right. And they carved these figures into that piece of wood, and it's one unit. It was amazing the details that these people had done. Now, they had, when you went in, they would tell you there's A grade, B grade, C grade. I'm like a D grade. And I forgot to have Bethany bring in, I may bring him, try to bring him next week, but I got her a set of candlesticks. You see this wall back here. It was back here in the corner, but the candlesticks, you know, for me, I cringe. When I looked at candlestick, it was like, I think they were $25 a piece. And I'm thinking, ooh, well, it's nothing. I mean, it's all hand carved, and you'll see what I'm saying in just a minute. But these pieces were just, this is how the Christians make their money. And so
These are all carved out of olive wood.
out of olive wood, yes, thank you.
How much money?
Oh, I'm gonna ask you that in just a second. Keep your eyes on these. You see the size. Look at that. Isn't it? And there's one guy who is known as the master. I did not write down his name, but to get one of his,
That's probably 2,000.
Oh,
just wait.
bring on.
Okay, here's one. This piece here. This is one that was sitting near the front. It's one of their showpieces. It was probably about this tall. Okay, so just watch that one. Whoops.
Ray, you didn't buy one?
This one was about 5 feet tall. Ray, was this the one you were thinking of? I mean, there's your Last Supper. Here's your nativity scene. Here's the city, all carved out of one tree trunk. Give me a price. Kids, I'll start with you. How much do you think this would cost you? It's about this tall. Give me a price. 15,000? Okay, what do you think, Layla? If it cost 5 trillion, our country could buy it from China. Okay, let's start with Grayson. Grayson said 15. Grayson, that is a good guess, okay, but it's not big enough. Pete?
40,000?
40's getting closer.
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding. That one's 50. That one's probably about like this. 50,000, there's your camels. Here's your manger area. There's kings. I'm not going to go debating this stuff on that part. There's animals around the sides. This is just intricate. That's about $50,000. That's one of the masters. This one is 65. 65,000. I'm thinking, we could take out a mortgage on the house. This is the one on the other side. And you get to see the detail, another 55,000. Now, if you went in with cash and offered them 45, I say they take it.
It looks like there's different pieces of wood in there. The grains are different.
It does. It does. And how? I don't know. I'm telling what I was told. I think it's a lot stain wise where they put these in. I don't know how they do everything. $50,000.
How long did it take that guy to do it?
That, I think he said that would take about 6-7 years.
That's pretty cheap when you start thinking about that.
Yeah, I know. You were in a different shop than I was.
Was I? Okay. So this, again, the intricate work. And even if it is various pieces that put those together.
So how much is that?
That one, I don't know. There was a man with us who, he's the one I told you about who helped fund a number of us to go, who helped us. And as part of, he wanted to get one of these for his business. He'd write it off as a business expense because he's going to put it in his office. And he's going to use that as, people need to go see this. He was looking at $12,000, $14,000 and they'll protect it and ship it and get it where it needs to go. But this was, just the intricacy of this work. Probably.
Did they have the crosses where you hold on to them? Little pop out, they're made out of that, olive wood.
What do you mean you hold on to them?
Well, my aunt got one over there when they went over there, and it's like a cross, but it's made where, you hold it between like 2 fingers here and then these 2 and then the cross.
Okay.
But it was, something to hang on to, just to, like when my dad.
Okay. No, I don't recall. I may have seen one of those, but I don't remember them. So these things here would probably be looking at about $9,000. Okay. Let's this is Bethlehem. So I just took this so you would hear what it's like. And here you go.
Traffic in Bethlehem.
Helps the weather more often and hard.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, you can't do anything. I mean, I don't know what people are doing, so. That was a lot, that was just obnoxious. This is what is probably the oldest, known as the oldest church in the world. It's the Church of the Nativity. It is it's 3 parts. We'll see that later on, but. Okay, I'm gonna give you some very broken history and no details as I can't remember it. But there was a time, I think it was under the Turks, where if I came and I decided, you know what, I want Ray's house. I'm gonna go beat up Ray and I'm gonna take possession of his house and I'm gonna kick Ray off the property. Well, I now own his house and he can never own it again because I won. That was the rules, and it applied to churches. So what churches would do is they would say, you know what, we better not be doing this to each other. We better stick together a little bit. So you would have 3 different types of churches into one building. And in here, it's still that way. There is I think it's Franciscan for Catholic. There's an Armenian, there's a Greek Orthodox, and they're all in one building. And they all operate different sections of that building. And they did that because had they not, their land everything would have been gone. So they kind of did it out of necessity. This building, this is one of the churches that Helena, who is the mother of Constantine back in the 300s, she said, I want to build some churches to commemorate things that happened. And so she came in, I believe this one was 334. She's had this church built. She had 5 total in Israel built. And this one was to honor the nativity, birth of Christ. You'll notice, and we're going to see a couple of things here. Do you see the door to this building?
No, that one right there by the guy's hat.
Right by the guy's hat. Now, this door, just keep in mind, that's not far away. It looks really small. That's because it's really small. Okay, that's the door. And there's gonna be a couple of things we'll point out as we go through this. Let's go here.
This is called Manger Square. I don't know what's going on there. Here's.
That guy in the blue shirt is the one who helped us. So anyways, and I just said, and I'm going to correct it in a second, I don't know what's going on there. That was, I believe, May 16th. 2 days before was when Israel celebrates the forming of their country. So May 14th, 15th, something like that. It is a huge celebration for Israel. That's Palestinians. They call this the day of catastrophe when the Israel state was born. They hate this day. That's what that big group was. We asked, the guys that were hanging out right down here and there, they weren't happy when we asked because this is a day of catastrophe for them. They hate it. So because they hate Israel. So here we are at the door. Now what you'll notice, you see there's this archway here.
Yeah.
There was your original door.
Oh.
Then they came in and they filled it in, and here's another door. Then they filled it in, and here's another door. Then they filled it in, and here's the door now. They made it in the original, they made it small to keep people from bringing their animals in, but it came to be known as the door of humiliation. And there's some good about that. What you have to do, and you'll see it, is you can't walk through that door. You've got to bow down.
Yeah, this is the original. You can see that there's a large gate. They kept blocking it off. And eventually they got down to this small gate going into this church. This celebration is not a celebration. 2 days ago was the Israeli independence from a Palestinian conflict. This is the sad day. 2 days later for the Palestinians, and they call it the day of catastrophe. And they have these celebrations, sad days for this.
So you notice when people were going through, they were ducking. The whole concept now was, as you go into this building, you should be showing homage. You bow before your king. You bow before Jesus, and that's what it's evolved into. Which for us, I would say is appropriate. We should not be coming in here with this, and hey, it's party time. Hey, I just want to go see my buddies. we need to be coming here to worship our Lord together. There should be a reverence as we come together to worship Jesus. And we should be thinking on him. And it's kind of back to that thing of people when they say, oh, Jesus is my best, he's my homie. Jesus is not my homie. Jesus is my savior. He's my Lord. And I need to hold him in that position. And I respect that they want to do that. That's a good thing. So somebody else took this one, obviously, and emailed it to me, but you definitely have to go down to get in there. My friend he was 5 inches taller than me, but he was really hitting his head on.
Is anybody who couldn't fit in?
No,
Okay.
I think Chris was the biggest. So, and I'm going to forewarn you now, from here on out, I've reviewed it, but I reviewed it days ago, not today, because I ran out of time. But, so I'm going to do the best I can. You wouldn't duck much. So this is just inside. Once we came through this door of humiliation, and can I stand here? Am I in the way for you guys? Okay. This is the door of humiliation where you come down into the building. And this is just some pictures from around the inside. Now, I will say this was built in 300. It was destroyed in 600 and then rebuilt. So they rebuilt based on what they had, but this is a rebuilding of what they had before. Okay, this is. I beg your pardon? Yes.
That looks like a tripping. I think I would have a heyday with that.
Oh, they would. They would. This would not work. This building to me was amazing. Now, if you look, you see these, and I know we haven't gotten any of the scriptures yet, but I just want to go through these. You see how this floor is different?
Yeah.
It kind of bugged me. I'm thinking why, but they've been finding as they continue to excavate, they have found, look up here, all of these mosaics, and some are down. You see where this gate is right there, and there's a hole. They have these set up so they can remove that wooden floor and then put it right back to cover it up. And they're still excavating and finding these original mosaics from the year 300 that were under here. Now, this happens. I had a friend of mine, a good close friend up in New York, had he found a piece of like a china cabinet back when I lived in Massachusetts. And he took a heat gun. He bought it at a yard sale or something. He said, I think it'll be good. He took a heat gun and he started taking off layers upon layers of paint. And he got down to what was a gorgeous piece of wood. And then he finished. But that's what happens. We'll get things and we'll do it on our homes. We'll paint, paneling's in, and then we got to paint the paneling. And then we got to, you always are doing things like that. That's what happened to every one of these pillars. There was plaster and paint. And then I believe it was only about 20 years ago, they started removing that stuff. And this is what they found. Every one of these had a different drawing on it. They're gorgeous. And they found all of these. And then they were finding around that same time, all of these mosaics, but they couldn't keep them. They put them up here to display them up on the wall so people could see these mosaics. So if I'm not mistaken, up here, some of you will probably be more familiar with this one is a Greek Orthodox, very similar to Catholics. So it's very ornate area.
Where are those cables coming down?
Which one? Up.
Right there. Yeah.
Those.
No, they're out the front. Out there, maybe yeah, they're right there. Look at the top of the screen right below the track and those lines are coming.
I don't know. Don't ask me hard questions. They do. There's a lot of things. They hang them from up here and bring them down. I would guess incense and lights.
Okay.
That would be my guess. And Ray, you are welcome to chime in if you remember any of that better. And again, just showed that one. And I had a man come into church one time to see me, and he made this comment as he walked into he was a Catholic guy. And as he walked into our auditorium, he said the thing that stood out to him was the utter poverty of us. And I thought, really? I mean, I think it's pretty good. But for him, this is what he's used to. He's used to ornate. He's used to the show stuff. And this is what it looks like up there. And it's just this is the Greek Orthodox part, I believe. And what they do is there's a door here in the middle. And then there's always 4 pictures. The picture to the right is Jesus. The picture to the right of Jesus is John. And going the other direction, the picture to the left is Mary. And the picture to the left of that is whatever the church is commemorating. So in this case, it would be the nativity scene. So that's what happens. And you can see barely, that's Tim going down. It's a very narrow staircase going down to the caves. Now, maybe you haven't. Growing up, I was always told Jesus, when he was born, they placed him in children, who could tell me where they placed Jesus in when he was born? A manger. Thank you. I appreciate that. They put him in a manger. Now, I always assumed a manger was going to be inside of what kind of a structure?
Barn,
A barn.
stable.
And where was this stable? What kind of place would it have been?
It was attached to the
Like a lean-to.
Back part,
Okay, well, here's what I was, from what they have found here, it would have been a part of that place, but it would have been more like the basement. It would have been a cave. It would have been and that's what they found. And we're going to see more of that in just a minute. So as you go down into this cave area, I went way too fast on that. I'm sorry. This is just what this place is. It is just all show.
Vanity.
Yeah, very much. But I wanted you to see it. So this is what's going down, coming down into the cave area. And this star thing is where they say, okay, we believe this is where Jesus was born, the place where he was born. Now, do we know exactly where he was born? The spot? No. We don't know the exact spot. But here's what we do know. Judea, yes. Bethlehem, this is the Bethlehem of David. We know that's accurate. So we can get to that point. We know, and they found in this area a manger where the animals would stay. And I'll show you in another one where the animals, how they did this, where the animals stayed in dugouts. It was a cave area with limestone. And you'll see that in a few minutes. They also, let me see if I wrote this down. There was a guy. Come on, Ray. I'm not finding his name.
I looked for marble, granite.
This is put in there as this is not original. There's some there that are original. This is there because this is dolled up. This is all dolled up for this place, and they've made it very Catholic, and so be it. There was a guy, and I can't find his name here, I apologize. He hated Christianity. He hated the church, and what he would do is he was an emperor. He would go to the sites that he knew of, and he would erect a temple of his own on top of those. One of those happened here. Tradition says that's the spot, and if it's not, it is mighty close. This is probably one of the closest of the places I went that they found stuff. So what we had with these mangers, with these stables, were usually dug into or out of limestone. It was not like we have today of outside, have a barn structure that's up. It was natural structures, and you'll see some of those in just a minute. Now, let's look at those scriptures we talked about a minute ago. Who had Micah 5:2? Okay, go ahead and read that one for us.
But you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah?
Ephrata.
Okay. But you, Bethlehem, that word, though you are little among thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one be ruler in Israel, who going forth are from of old, from everlasting.
Okay, so there we have Bethlehem prophesied, Luke 2:4-7.
And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth, the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David. He registered with Mary, his betrothed, with the child, and while they were there, the time came for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, lied him in a manger, because there was no place for them.
Okay, here's my question for you. Why would Mary go there? Based on that verse, what do we know? Why did she go? Why did Joseph insist that his wife go to that place? I don't think he had to insist.
She was a blind David too.
She was. But why would Joseph and Mary want to take Mary along on this trip, knowing, ladies, would you want to do this? You're going to give birth. You know when you're within a week. Okay, prophecy. Would you really want to take that trip? It's about 90 miles.
How close was she when they started filming?
They got down there and she gave birth right after. Rough, I would say in our condition right now, 3 days would be a good journey. I would guess pregnant, 5 days. So why would Mary want to go? We know from that from those verses, what were they going there to do? Yeah, they were taking a census, taking their money, and so Joseph could have done that by himself. Here's the key that was happening. That's the time frame for the Feast of Tabernacles. That was one of the 3 feasts where you were to go to Jerusalem and you were to go down to worship. It's a time it's a nationalistic time when they would want to be there. Mary would have desired to have been there. And this makes, for me, this made a lot of sense because we know it was Feast of Tabernacles, one of the 3 feasts. And that's when all the Jews come back. What happens if everybody comes back? Is everything what's gonna happen to all the rooms? They're gonna fill up. Why could they not find a place to stay? If all you're going down to do is pay your taxes and, bug out and go home, you'd have a place to stay. Here, it was the feast. Everybody was there. So that's why they would have had trouble finding a place to stay. Now, our guide was very adamant with his view. I disagreed with him, but conceptually, he was right. We can trace Jesus' birthday, and it's not December 25th, nowhere near it. We can trace it, and the way we do it is by going off of who? John the Baptist. You go off of John the Baptist. Exactly. Because, and let's look at that.
What do you say?
6 months. Who had Luke 1:26? Okay, go ahead and read that one for us.
And in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent to God unto a city of Galilee named Nazareth.
Okay, in the 6th month, and what in the context he's talking about Elizabeth being pregnant with John the Baptist. So here's what you had. You had kids who can tell me what is John the Baptist? What was his daddy's name? Do you remember that? Oh, you're good. Zacharias. I love it. Do you remember his mama's name? Elizabeth. So here you've got Zacharias and Elizabeth. Now here's a tough one. What was Zacharias's job? You're not a kid. Hit yourself on the hand. Thank you. Okay, he was a priest, kids. That's yours anyways. He was a priest. And they know exactly what his lineage of the priesthood was, the family. So they can trace back and say, here is the time frame he was in doing his priestly duties. And it was late May to early June. if that's the case, he would have left there, gone home. That is when his wife would have conceived. Then you would have had Mary coming in at the 6th month, which would have been that January-ish timeframe, December, January. That's when Mary had the visit from the Holy Ghost, and now she's pregnant. So John the Baptist is born 3 months later at March timeframe, which means September, October is when Jesus was born. Some Fote, he was very adamant that Jesus would have been born on October 14th, based on all the dates they had. Another place I looked said September 11th. It's a sign. It's a sign. But, you know, I would go after, for me, the September 11th makes more sense with the Feast of Tabernacles. Because everything we have, all of Jesus' major prophecies, I mean, his major events in his life, they happened at one of those 3 feasts. You had Passover, Feast of Passover. That's when Jesus is murdered. What happened shortly after that? He rose from the dead, and about 40 days later, what happened? Pentecost. He's rising. Now you got Feast of Tabernacles. That's his birth. Jesus fulfilled the Old Testament pictures, the ceremonies. They're all fulfilled in Jesus. And so these are some things that we see here with the birth of Jesus happening here and at the time it happened. So let me go down a little bit more. I've already gone through this. Okay, there it is. If knowing how do we know they found the right place? One of the other things I didn't mention here, when you know somebody famous has been born in your town, do you know kind of, hey, that was their house? Case in point, if you go down to French Lick, what house can they point out to you?
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird. If there's somebody, and there's been a few came from Huntingburg who have made it to the majors, that's where that person came from. What do you think they would do about David? That's David's town. They would know. And that's another one of the ways they know that this was the area. So it would have been a cave. And by the way, when they found this one, and we'll go through a few more here, one of the things they found in this cave.
The place for Jesus.
Where the manger used to be. So one more time, the Star of Bethlehem, the birth of Jesus, and down below the place where the manger used to be. And look now here, when you're standing, you not here, there's a fine man.
That's the place. That would be the manger, where the manger was. And they found one, and that manger is in the Israel Museum. They've taken it out. Down in the basement in the cave area. And that cave area is where they would build a house over. No different with us. If you have a basement, 9 times out of 10, that's not where your living room is. Some people are going to have a garage in the basement. Some people may have a guest room in the basement. I think most people are going to have storage in the basement. It's not where you have your living room. That's exactly what was happening here. It would have been where animals were put. Kind of like where, oh, help me out with the name. The guy came home, he made the foolish vow. First thing comes out of my house. What's his name? Did the daughter, it was his daughter. Jeff, thank you. The first thing comes out, well, guess what lived in the house normally? Animals. She came out instead. He was looking to sacrifice one of his prize animals, and boom, there comes this girl. Foolish vow to make. They had animals living inside. That's what happens. So that being said, okay, they found the manger there. Early on, you know the name Jerome. He's the one who translated Latin Vulgate. He worked in the caves that were under this church. And one of the things they found was bones of babies, bunches of them. Why would you have bones of babies? Rachel weeping for her children. When the king was all irate, This guy's not gonna be king in my place. Go kill all the babies 2 and under. They found tons of bones of babies. And it's sad. But again, just a clarifier, a help that this is a legitimate spot. So this is just some more pictures from inside, and yes, it is definitely what churched up, if you will. But there's the spot where they say birth would have happened, and then over here there's the cave. This is where the manger was found, and obviously, again, they've remodeled it, if you will. Okay, do you remember upstairs? I told you in those
Oh, yeah.
wooden floors.
Oh, they're just little indents in the floor.
Yes, they raise it up, put it back down. They don't want anybody walking on it, and they're still excavating. So I wanted you to see that. So this is actually come back up out of the basement. I have no idea why I took this picture. I don't know what it is. I apologize, but it was something. There's more of that floor. That just amazed me. That is 1,700 years old. It is amazing to me.
They said that was an altar.
I'll believe you. I'll believe you. There's another one. This was outside in the same place as one of the old baptismals. And this one was for the little ones. This one was for the adults. And so I guess they would raise one out to get the adults in, but that was one of the baptistries that they had.
Church again, by 3 different groups of Greek Orthodox at this side. So as you go through that side of the church.
Can you hear that?
This side is ruled by the Armenians.
Tell you what, we'll do this.
To the Catholic side, through there. And the designs here are amazing.
I'm gonna rewind it.
Church to
There.
Ruled by 3 different groups of the Greek Orthodox at this side. So as you go through that side of the church, you can through, and this side is ruled by the Armenians. And then we're about to head into the Catholic side, through there. And the designs here are amazing, these mosaics that are up here, all over the walls, ones they found. The backups to display them in the periods from the 300s. They're restored now. We have this whole shape. If you look here, it goes to the side. They've arranged this in the shape of a cross. And saw mosaics a minute ago with the again from the 300s. And then as they were doing some work in this century, they started taking things off of these pillars, cleaning the pillars, and found all of these bones underneath on each one of these pillars.
Notice on the floor, if I hit it again to the right, there.
The side down the base, the cave.
Those are some original
Jesus.
from the 300s. And that was just outside in the courtyard. They had this one blocked off, one of the cave entrances, because caves are everywhere. And now this one, and I am sorry, this is going later than I thought. This is going to the Shepherd's Field, which is right here. We were over at the Church of the Nativity. And so the Shepherd's Field, where the angel appeared to the shepherds, they went to see baby Jesus. So I don't know why I took that one either. It was interesting. Flowers outside that are out of focus. So if you like out of focus pictures of flowers, those are for you. Okay, Shepherd's Field. And this is where we're going to end tonight. This is just this is the outside area. Now, what they've got is this field, and there was a church built there. It was again around the 200s to 300s. It got destroyed and it's not been rebuilt, but it was there to commemorate these caves. So what would happen is, and we're going to go into these with the video, and you're going to have to do this again. I'm sorry, but it was as you go into it, you could it's a perfect picture. You would go down into the cave, and there's an opening to the right and to the left that circles around a stone into a big room. And in those rooms, you had little side cubbies where people could, other shepherds could be if they wanted to. But you could have one shepherd sitting right here, and nothing's coming through him. our guy gave the analogy that he said, you Americans have a term, it's over my dead body. So that is exactly what would have been right here. If you're gonna get in to go after this guy's animals, it's gonna be over his dead body. And that's why this is such a good picture for us. We have this picture of barns and of places like that. They had caves. And that's what they stayed in with their animals most of the time. A lot of the pictures that you're gonna see are extremely dark because I couldn't help it. That was just one of the ladies. So we all did a reading. By the way, if any of you say I would like to go and I can't handle it, she's about 85 years old. She walked with a cane and she walked half the time holding my arm. Other guys helped with their arms. We got her where she was going. So if you want to go, you can do it.
This is one of the areas that is, could be where the shepherds were. These things that are here, see where people are going down. into that one. There's just multiple caves around where the shepherds would store their sheep. And I built a church on this. This is why I have such things opening up here. There's where church was built in the 4th century, destroyed in the 6th century. We go going down in the cave there, just a few minutes. There's another view where the caves would be. So this is about 2 miles this direction, the Bethlehem. So the angels appeared and about 2 miles away, they would have gone to Bethlehem to see the newborn Jesus. And going down into one of the side.
Okay, I had it right and then I blew it. So again, tilt your head. I'm sorry.
Going down into one of the caves.
There you go. Pretty much.
Oh, just using it. And then pepper.
So it was making widespread.
Which means that Bob is in the house of 4,000-year-old son.
You're being videoed there, Tim. Steve too.
This metal is lasting.
One of the caves. And that'll be Steve too making bad noises.
Okay, so that's the cave inside. I tried to get these, and it's hard. But that's what I'm seeing. You'll see a little bit. There we go. I tried. That's what we were trying, and it was big and it was dark.
Over to.
There's some of our lives. Okay, so that's what Bethlehem's like now. This is back in the day, Bethlehem would have been about 200-400 people, something like that. It's a small town. And now, it's huge.
They had this tourist. They were,
This
yeah.
is high-rise apartments. This is where they all live. And I thought these look really neat to me. I don't know what that plant was. It looked like an aloe vera, but it was a really neat looking plant. So I got a couple of pictures of those. And then that one on the way out. Shepherding is still very active. So that's why I got this one. And no arms. So everybody stops for them. And I think we're going to end with this little guy. This one broke my heart. He's the one that did not speak English. He knew one phrase, and that was picture for money, picture for money. And before he told me that, he came up and you'd pet his little lamb, goat, whatever this thing is. But you'd pet it. What he wanted was to get your picture and you pay him. And I didn't know he didn't speak English. And so I was walking with either Ruby or Ruth Ann, and I said, I'll trade you her for that goat. And picture for money, he didn't get it. But I was trying to trade off one of the ladies, but it would have been fun. So anyways, people put the kids to work. And when you get inside that wall, you do what you can to turn a buck. I had some things that I bought from a little girl who was, oh my, I would put her at Josh's age, little thing, and parents had her out with bracelets trying to sell them. And it was just extremely sad, very sad. But this is a reality over there. So these were the pictures towards the end, and I would say that there's a lot of things with this Shepherd's Field and that area. This is where David was. It was where Boaz was with Ruth. It's where Rachel is buried. All of these things happened right here at Bethlehem. And it is interesting that, you know, you talk about the shepherds were in the fields. When I think of fields, I think of, hay fields and grass, and this is what it is. It's fields of rock. It's fields of caves, and the caves were needed because they could put the animals in them and protect them. But this is what they're going through. And these caves, these animals that they have here in Bethlehem, they would have been raising the animals that would be taken to Jerusalem, and they would sell them as sacrificial lambs. So they've got these lambs and they have to take care of them. They have to guard them in these caves at night. And it's one of the things that was exciting to me as you think about this is the shepherds. They were, you might say, we would see them as like the first converts, the first ones. He came to these low lives who couldn't even testify in court. Well, keep in mind, they weren't the first converts. The first converts would have been your wise men, the Gentiles who believed the scriptures and they were coming to see this Messiah. They were already believing. And I'm encouraged by that because we know that the gospel, yes, it's to the Jew first, also to the Greek, but God didn't sideline Gentiles like us. The gospel's for us. And I'm thankful for that. I wasn't an afterthought for my Lord. God knew me before the foundations of the world. He loved me. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm very thankful for that we can see through these pictures. Questions? I hope I've got answers if you've got them.
I think somebody that gave me some money. Great picture.
I don't know if they did or not. A lot of people did. I mean, there would have been several hundred just at the time we were standing there. And people would have taken their picture. There's lots of them. Lots of them.
Most likely reason that Mary was downstairs with the animals having the baby. She would have made every man up in the living quarters unclean if she had a baby up there. So I'm guessing the women hustled her downstairs to get her away from them because they knew that the men had to clean for the worship services. So
Could have been part of it.
Well, put her downstairs and walked back and forth until she had a baby. And then the manger was right there. She got the baby slung in clothes during the wedding.
The inn was full too, wasn't it?
The home would have been full. And they because there was no room, and we use the word inn, and we shouldn't think of it the way we use it, like Holiday Inn. This was somebody's home. This is their living quarters. There was no room in that living quarters, because that same word is translated different in other places. So the inn is not a motel. It is somebody's home. And there wasn't a place for them to stay. So we stay, again, like Americans. We have Bethany and I have a room, and the kids have a room. They had a room where a bunch of people slept. And it would be more like some of the foreign countries would do. But there was no room there, so they put them into that manger area, into the cave. And that's where she was when that baby was born and her labor came. And it was good. Yeah, it would have been nicer. Because we know good and well, it gets hot. So it was good. Anyone else? I've kept you very late and I apologize. Okay. Well, let's have a word of prayer and we will be dismissed.